So here's everything we need to make our permanent mini basket. First is this 9-gauge galvanized steel wire. I found this on Amazon for about $6, 50 feet. Should be more than enough. I'll be bending that into make the basket and the top chainstay. I got this scrap piece of 2x6 treated wood. It was from the scrap pile, only a couple bucks. That 2x6 is 5.5 inches wide. So what I did was I printed out a couple shapes here. This is a 16-sided shape and this is 12-sided. This is going to be cut out of my piece of wood. The 12-sided for the basket and 16-sided for the top of the chainstay. I got just over 16 feet of number 12 jack chain. I'm going to be making a 16 chain mini basket. This is 1/2 inch metal conduit, also pretty cheap, $2 for a 10-foot. I'm going to cut that in half and I'll have a 5-foot pole to work with to hold up the mini basket. And then I also got some yellow Rust-Oleum, optional. I'm going to paint the basket and the chainstay. This is my 1/2 inch metal conduit. It's 10 feet long and I've marked it at 4.5 feet. I'm going to cut it in half. And I'm going to cut it at 4.5 feet so I have a longer and a shorter post. For some variation, I'll be able to have 2 baskets out of this post. I'm going to cut it at an angle so that I have 2 stakes that I can then drive into the ground. Two stakes that I'll be able to use for posts. So this is a jig that I've made out of part of the scrap piece of wood. This is going to be where I make the top chainstay and also the basket. I'm going to make 12 of these basket arms and I'm going to make 16 arms for the top of the basket to hold the chains. So I'm going to make one of the top basket arms. And there we have one. So I've made 16 of these basket arms, and having the jig makes it really easy to make them all the same. So I'm going to have 16 spokes going all the way around the top of the basket, and the chain will stay in here, and I'll have a loop of wire going around in a circle through this top loop. So now what we're going to do is make one of the basket assembly arms. And there we go. So I've taken my chain, I got just over 16 feet, and I've separated it into 16 separate strands. All you need to do is take a pliers and open up each piece of chain, no need to cut, and get 16 that are all the exact same length. So I've taken my wood scraps and I've cut a 16-sided and a 12-sided shape. I've also cut 2 octagons that I'm going to place in the middle for some added stability. Now I'm going to drill holes through these, and the size of the holes I'm going to be doing is 11/16 of an inch. It's not a common size. I had to actually go buy a bit for a couple dollars, but it's worth it. If you only have a 3/4 inch bit, you can use that, but the holes are going to be a little loose. So I've drilled my 11/16 inch holes into my 4 blocks of wood. And like I said, you could use a 3/4 inch hole, but it might be a little sloppy on the 1/2 inch conduit. What I'm going to do is attach these blocks of wood, and these extra blocks of wood are just for added stability. I could use just the base. And once I attach these, I'm going to put some wood glue and a few screws in. I'm going to be able to put these right onto the 1/2 inch conduit. And now what I need to do is take my wood blocks, and I've glued these extra pieces on there for some additional support. I need to drill some holes into the sides of this 1/8 inch bit that I can then put all of my metal pieces into. This is going to hold on to the basket and the chainstay. Now that I've drilled the holes in my 2 blocks of wood, I'm just going to take a hammer and insert the basket pieces into the blocks of wood. And the same with the top chainstay pieces into the 16-sided block of wood. So I've taken my metal pieces and I've hammered them into my wooden blocks for both the basket pieces and the top chainstay pieces. We're starting to get something that looks like a basket. Now what I'm going to do is make some metal circles and put them through these loops. So I've finished putting rings around the top of the chainstay and the basket. I've just put one ring around the top and crimped these together. On the basket, I have 3 rings, one around the bottom, around the middle, and then the top. And then on the top, I've crimped the top down on each of these to keep it from moving. So these arms are solid and not going anywhere. The basket and the chainstay pieces I've painted up with some yellow Rust-Oleum to help them be a little extra weatherproof, since this is going to be a permanent outside basket. What I've done is I first drilled a hole in the top and put my chainstay piece on, and then I measured 10.5 inches down from the basket and marked another hole to drill to hold the basket on it. I just have a pin that I made out of a paper clip, but you could use a few wraps of duct tape, or you could use a screw to put through the conduit for a permanent application. I'm going to have a few different posts in the yard, so I want these to be interchangeable, so I'm using a pin. So I have my basket and my chainstay attached by the pins, and the opening from the top of the chain to the basket is 10.5 inches. All I need to do is hang each piece of chain, and then I'm going to attach the bottoms with a metal ring that I've made. And that's the permanent outdoor basket for less than $20. So this is the finished mini basket. I've just taken the metal conduit and pushed it into the ground and twisted. You don't want to use a hammer because you'll deform the top of the metal conduit, and then you won't be able to slide the basket pieces on and off unless it's permanent. I've also made this mini bucket in a different video. This is a little more simple to make, and you could also use a permanent type setup if you just drilled the right size holes for this basket in your wood blocks, and then the bottom of the basket you could put pins and slide a basket like this with a top and bucket onto a permanent post. Let's give this thing a try.